I'm having to compress out a lot of the information because if I put it all in, this would go on for quite a while. But imagine what you're looking at now is, it may actually be 3 weeks later. And what's happened is let's call it the graduate, has now gone into this program and entered the job for Fred and Mary Smith and brought up the job for their business tax return for the year. Now what they will see is a string of steps. And the steps will have, for example, that the job is a partnership tax return issue, but it has various attachments and guidelines about each area. And what these guidelines do is provide a mechanism for mentoring, control and work papers. For example, we discussed the audio comments with the job to explain what's happening. So when they open the job, they can see that in the audio comment area there is an MP3 attached. They can click on that MP3 and listen to it, and then on completion of that MP3 they tick off that they have listened to it and they can refer back to it. It's all there at their fingertips. Now this is where, and again there are other articles on the site that cover this in more detail, where the software shifts from being merely a checking procedure to a control, mentoring and accuracy area. If you think about taxation returns in particular, you're doing a set of financials for a partnership, it gets quite complicated. And you have to pass all this knowledge on to your staff. For example, and I've just picked a few here, and I've called number 4 a user-defined field, because the idea is you create your own fields. But CGT adjustment events. These are significant things in partnerships, and I wonder sometimes, in terms of the complexity and the way a lot of practitioners are thinly spread, how well they get this done. You give the tax job, which is a partnership, to the accountant, the junior accountant, the graduate, and we know that if you have a change in business use of an asset in a partnership within certain time periods, as a CGT adjustment event for that change in business use. Not only that, it can keep changing each year because of the way the law works in this area. Now, the idea behind this is that these steps provide your graduate with an opportunity to understand they need to do this. In other words, as they go through these jobs, they will say, was there a CGT adjustment event? And they can then click on a PDF which will open up the basics about what the issues are. The idea is not to put all the law in there, because law continuously changes. But you will highlight the fact that there is a question during the year: did an asset the client had in that partnership change its business use? And if it did, there are GST implications and you need to follow up on that. And if you've got good references to CCH, Reuters or whatever in terms of your tax library, your graduate's in a position to actually try and figure it out. A, they're learning. B, you're doing quality work because you're not missing it. And that's often what happens. If you're not standing over the grad, it all gets missed. And then unless you've got this incredible ability to review jobs and pick it all up, you're going to do an incorrect return is more likely than not likely. Another good one is partnership salaries. Partner salaries are a major area in partnerships. There are rules concerning them and they can be very useful for tax planning. But how do you control that? I mean, at what point does your graduate find this information out? The idea behind expert systems is they find out as they're doing the job. So you've created the job, it's in the system, the graduate's now gone into the job and they're working through a list of things that they need to do in order to complete the job. They've got a completed checklist, and remember it's all networked, but you now have the ability to pass this information on to them. Now in other presentations or articles I get into this in a little bit more detail. Unfortunately, to use the internet and videos as a way of putting all this online is very cumbersome. But I think you get the point. There are a string of procedures that you can design very easily that will allow your staff to access this sort of information. It rapidly improves your ability to provide staff with both control systems, access to work papers, guidance and so on. I mean, they can hear your voice just like you're hearing mine, where you might explain to them practice protocol on certain issues. They don't have to keep knocking on your door or not speaking to you because your door's closed or you're on the phone. By doing this, they learn. And the experience is that having these systems allows your staff to learn a lot faster. It's not about ticking boxes, it's about actually teaching people to learn quickly, to become productive employees and to have a complex and interesting job.